Aslan and Jack, were you able to go through the questions by any chance?
I went through the questions. Yes, I think Jack did too. There were so many of them, but I think
Yeah.
a lot of them will be answered during the talk as well, right? So I think, yeah, and then we can cover as much as possible from that list.
Yeah. So it's not like we will have all the questions. It's just like, we gave you the overview because that is basically what the Indian startup wants to know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure
and
how
if there's other questions that needs to be answered later on, we will be happy to chat over email or LinkedIn to answer some of the questions as well.
And are you like, do you guys follow Indian startup ecosystem by any chance?
I do all the time.
Oh, wow. Then it's easier. It's happening. It's like a lot of.
There's a lot of work. I actually met with a few companies like Amp Health and stuff like that who were in US, but India were the primary market, and they were working there. So quite aware, especially over the last couple of years. Yeah.
Yes. So, Balinder, were the links which I shared yesterday were helpful for you?
Yes, thank you for sending those along, Neha. I have a kind of a good sense of what's happening kind of from a central government standpoint, and then those state authorities. That was helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. So one thing which comes up very loudly, and I think that is also happening in Canada now, which is government and academia participating in helping startup grow. I think that is the best way for any country to help the innovation grow in the country. So this is what India did long back. I follow Israel and Germany also very closely, work with them. So even they did. And I think Canadian government is also pushing a lot in that. OCI is a great example for that for Ontario. So I think this is a good platform where we talk about all this initiatives led by Canadian government for the startups in the global market, and how welcoming is the government for them.
Neha, can we go ahead?
Yeah, Kiran, we can start.
Okay. Very good evening to Indian audience, and then good morning to the Canadian audience, and then We thank you for all your interest in attending this healthcare opportunities in Canada, brought to you together by Majumdar Shah Medical Foundation Technology Business Incubator and Toronto Business Development Center. So MSMF TBA and TBDZ has a close partnership wherein TBDZ is one of the phenomenal organizations trying to help the Indian startup expand their base, specifically in the Canadian ecosystem. And then they do support with various programs of theirs like Startup Visa Program, Expand, and then some entrepreneurial programs. So with these partnerships, we have worked together to have a wonderful line of speakers whom we would be closely interacting and then speaking about the Canadian ecosystem and how it works in the healthcare space altogether. With this, I'll give you a brief intro of Majumdar Shah Medical Foundation TBA, and then followed by TBD's introduction, and then I'll set the stage for the speakers to deliver their session on that. Audience, if you can start posting your questions in the chat box, where we can take those questions at the end of the session. Let me share my screen. Jay, can you enable the screen? Perfect. Yeah, so I'm Kiran Uppala. I am the head of operations at Majumdar Shah Medical Foundation Technology Business Incubator. So we proudly say we are the India's first hospital-based incubator, supported by our eminent stakeholders, Ms. Kiran Majumdar Shah, the founder of Biocon, and Chairman, Narayana Group of Hospitals, Dr. Devi Shetty, and Dr. Paul Salins, who is the existing Managing Director of Majumdar Shah Medical Foundation and Medical Director of Majumdar Shah Medical Center. So it's from the past close to a decade, we are working closely with the healthcare ecosystem in India and abroad, and then we were supported by the DST, the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India under NIDHI scheme, Department of Biotechnology, BIRAC, under the BioNet scheme, and then latest by the Startup India from the Invest India scheme. Altogether, we have across 25,000 square feet to support the startup ecosystem with incubation facilities, state-of-the-lab infrastructure, and other specific labs of ours, which I will discuss in the next slides. So far from the inception, we are supported close to 40 startups, and then we are unique in ourselves being based inside a hospital, and then we provide all-round support right from the TRL2, which is ideation, till pre-commercialization, which is TRL7. As we are hosted inside the Narayana Group of Hospitals at Bengaluru, it gives us access to the phenomenal doctor network here at Narayana Group of Hospitals, so that the startups who are hosted inside our facility will get a lifeline to talk to the key opinion leaders and get the things sorted out very clearly, because it's very pivotal for the startups in the biotech and the healthcare arena to have a close interaction with the multiple stakeholders before the product actually sees the light of the tunnel. In terms of the offerings, we do provide rental space to for the startup to do their day-to-day activities, and then we do investments, but with a small ticket size. And then we have a phenomenal network of investment partners where we do an facilitation and introduction for the startups of ours to take care of it. And then we have, as we based inside the hospital, we provide the clinical validation, preclinical validation, regulatory support through our partner organizations. So we have the state-of-the-art prototyping facilities in the electronics, mechanical garage, advanced AAML lab, and then wet lab facilities. You name all the equipments, right from the basic weighing machine to a high-end microscopy as well. So these are the glimpses of the BioNet incubators. So if the people, the folks in India and in Bangalore, you are happy to visit our facility whenever you have a chance to, and then we can sit over a coffee to discuss all your amazing ideas doing for the Indian and then global ecosystem as well. So this is where we are located. And then we have a phenomenal partners in India and across the world to support Indian startups at the various stages of their product development. And then we have a good partners in terms of the academic institutions, hospital networks, investment networks, corporates, and through doing some CSR activities through us, and then many more. Yeah, that's a little brief about Majumdar Shah Medical Foundation Technology Business Incubator. With this, I'll ask Neha Jain to speak about the TBDC and then introduce the speakers for the session today. Over to you, Neha.
Thank you. Thanks, Kiran, for giving us that brief about the Majumdar Shah Foundation. And we have also signed MOU with Dr. Kiran Majumdar and Dr. Paul when our chair Vikram Khurana and myself were there in Bangalore back in 2022. So moving on, I would like to introduce TBDC to the audience. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am Neha Jain, Director of Growth and Partnerships at Toronto Business Development Center. We call it as TBDC. TBDC is a non-profit organization dedicated to helping entrepreneurs and small business owners start and grow their businesses in Canada and North American markets. At TBDC, we offer a comprehensive suite of programs and services, including business advisory services, training and development programs, networking opportunities, and access to funding and resources from the government, academia, and different markets in Canada and North America. Our goal is to empower entrepreneurs with the skills, resources, and support they need to succeed in the North American ecosystem. One of our flagship program is the Startup Visa program, which is designed to attract talented and innovative entrepreneurs from all over the world to establish their businesses in Canada. As a designated organization for the program, TBDC provides entrepreneurs with the support they need to navigate an application process and obtain a startup visa. This allows them to move to Canada and grow their businesses while contributing to the Canadian economy. Kiran, can I have an access to share the slides? I would like to share my screen.
Sure. Jay, can you do that?
You can.
Yeah.
Then? Okay, so I'll quickly take you through the quick presentation on TBDC. So our story, Toronto Business Development Center is the first incubator which was established in 1990 by the City of Toronto with the support of the province. Since then, we have built a reputation as one of the leading business incubator in the country. Till today, we were able to help 9,000 plus businesses start and grow in Canada and then expand globally. These are our key partnership. We have partnerships at different level, federal, provincial, municipality level, industry. OCI is a very important partner to us. Through OCI, we are able to connect our entrepreneurs and startups with the industries and businesses in Canada, throughout Canada, and specifically in Ontario, where we are working with different economic development teams in various parts of Ontario with the help of OCI. Balinder will talk more on the OCI front. So our value proposition to startup is we make it easier, faster, and affordable for businesses to start, grow, and operate in Canada. What we offer as TBDC is personalized mentorship, tools, resources, knowledge base, premium office space. We have two centers as of now. One is in Toronto downtown, another is in city of Brampton. It's called Beehive Brampton. We give free legal counseling, and not only legal, there are like various other aspects which we cover for a startup when they decide to launch their products in Ontario. We also help them get connected to different academia for helping them with R&D, research, and spaces. There is an incubation and acceleration support. We also help startups in hiring resources. And last but not the least, we also connect them with various VCs in Canada-wide and also in US for access of funding. There's also a very key factor when it comes to funding, which is government grants. Canadian government is offering various grant opportunity for the startups who would like to come and set up their base in Ontario. So that is also we, along with the help of OCI, we try and get access to those grants for our entrepreneurs. I already spoke about Beehive. So Beehive is a partnership of TBDC along with the city of Brampton. We have a youth space where we run various entrepreneurial program, and again startup visa program, and SLP we call it as soft lending program is are the key two programs which we also operate in the Beehive Center. So about little bit about more about the startup visa program. So Canada startup visa program is intended to attract international entrepreneurs from all over the world, and we are largely focused on Indian entrepreneurs to support innovation and job creation in Canada. Successful application under this Canadian startup visa program also get their permanent residency after 2 years. Who can apply? Innovative business solutions who have their products ready, and if they think their products are viable for Canadian market, we help them. We help and support them come to Canada. Market validation. This is important not only for the incubation, but this is important for the startup itself, because ideation stage will be difficult for us to help and support, and for the startup also to sustain in the Canadian economy. So we prefer that the product is already, at least the product is at the minimal viable stage. A strong founding team, of course, it's very, very important, whether it doesn't matter which country they are. TBDC startup visa program details is like we have 2 months of pre-acceleration program, which is a virtual program. Then we have 6 months of acceleration program, which is in-person program in Toronto. This is our program fee, which is 30K Canadian dollars, and processing time for the startups to get approved and receive a letter of support from TBDC is 5 weeks. So yeah, this is our team. We are more than just the sum of our programs. TBDC is a beacon of hope and a source of talent and expertise, and is a community of people who want to make a world better. So summary, TBDC is the bridge between entrepreneurs and Ontario's government resources, industry leaders and investors that form part of the business ecosystem to help drive economic growth in Canada, and specifically in Ontario. So lastly, I want to sum up by saying, in addition to all our programs, TBDC play a key role in the economic development of Greater Toronto area. We work very, very closely with government bodies, organizations, and business leaders to promote entrepreneurship and innovation. One of our recent partners, thanks to Balinder for that, is OBO, and we hope to do a lot of work in the healthcare space and bring in innovation to the country. And we are hoping that Bibaswan and Jack, along with the entire OBO team, will support the entrepreneurs. So by fostering a strong and vibrant entrepreneurial community in Toronto and beyond, we are helping to build a brighter future. So that's about TBDC. Moving on, I would like to invite Balinder. Balinder is a head of business development in OCI. Balinder, can I request you to please introduce yourself further and talk about OCI and TBDC partnership?
Sure. Thank you so much, Neha, for your introduction. And are we still sharing screens? Am I able to? I think is Neha, is your screen shares? Oh, perfect. So can I go ahead and share my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay. And if someone could please just confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Karen. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Neha, for your kind introduction. And it's a pleasure to be here this morning, or I should say good evening to everyone attending in India and online. So as Neha mentioned, I'm Balinder Ray, Business Development Lead at the Ontario Centre of Innovation. And I'm going to provide a brief introduction to OCI, who we are, what we do, how we work with technology companies to help drive innovation in the province of Ontario here in Canada. So OCI has been around for more than 35 years, and we are funded primarily through the government of Ontario through the Ministry of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, as well as other provincial ministries, and also by the federal government. We are a not-for-profit organization, and we work with various partners and stakeholders, including government, industry, and academia. And we have a suite of programs that help accelerate the development, commercialization, and adoption of innovative technologies to ultimately drive job creation to Ontario. And we leverage industry contributions through all of our programs, which I'll get into more details about shortly. So what is it that OCI does? So our vision really is to be at the center of innovation in Ontario, and we're solidifying that. We help drive economic growth and job creation through the investments in commercialization and adoption of new and innovative technologies. Our mission and mandate really focus on a couple of key things to really bring together various stakeholders. So obviously industry, companies, large, small startups, bringing together academic partners as well, bringing together government partners to really help invest in those collaborative research and development opportunities, technology development opportunities, and commercialization opportunities, ultimately to generate the highest return on innovation for Ontario companies and for Ontarians. So we develop and deliver a suite of programs that really help accelerate innovation. So if you think of the continuum of commercialization and innovation, it starts, with applied research right through to commercialization, to adoption of technologies, and ultimately, market forces take over with investment and actually commercial launch of those technologies in the marketplace. So just to give you an idea of the return on innovation, or ROI as we like to call it, last year, OCI invested over $200 million, which included co-investments from industry and from partners into a range of projects. And the outcomes from those investments resulted in almost 960 companies in Ontario that were supported through our programs. More than 6,600 jobs that were created or retained here in Ontario, almost $350 million in incremental sales revenues by those companies that OCI supported. And finally, $800 million of follow-on investment from the private sector. So our funding leverages not just industry contributions, but also ecosystem investment as well. So how do we deliver and deploy our programs at OCI? I'm a member of the business development team, and we call ourselves boots on the ground, which mean that we're unique in the sense that we have business development and commercialization managers here in Ontario who are deployed right across the province. So if you think of large innovation hubs right across Ontario, OCI has a business development and commercialization manager embedded in those regional innovation ecosystems. So we really are the eyes and ears that regionally and locally that really work closely with entrepreneurs, work closely with companies and the various partners, whether they're academic partners, whether they are strategic partners in the sense of organizations like OBio, and community partners, economic development organizations. And so really our team of BDs, or as we call them, are those experts that bring not just their business and sector expertise to the table, but they are really key and integral in the networking for our companies to support them as they're looking to grow and scale their businesses. So they're very much hands-on, right from the initial engagement with companies, right through to developing an application, for example, to one of our programs. And if the project does get funded, then we are the project managers, and ultimately the outcomes that we're driving towards are success for our companies. So the success of OCI it can be measured also by the success of our partners and our companies. And on the industry and academic side, OCI's team work very closely with regional innovation sectors, innovation networks, I should say, and sector innovation networks. Again, helping to facilitate those connections for those companies here in Ontario to that expertise, to that research expertise that resides in Ontario universities, colleges, and research hospitals. And so that is very similar in a sense to what is happening in India with access to facilities, as we just heard, to on-site incubation space for those companies in the healthcare space specifically. Again, it's about helping those companies really work very closely with those experts and talent that they need to help drive innovation for them. And again, similarly to sort of the state operations in India and even the government, the central government programming to help drive innovation, it's really that startup ecosystem and access to funding, to programs, to talent, to resources, to space that really help drive companies forward. So just to give a very quick overview of programs, I won't go into detail about each program. We have a lot of information on our website, but I do also want to mention that OCI is sector agnostic. So really our focus is driving innovation and innovative technology development. So whether it's a disruptive product or a service, it's all about moving the needle forward and helping those companies become more globally competitive. So we do have specific programming in the healthcare and life sciences space. Our Collaborate to Commercialize program funds projects between industry and academia. And research hospitals are a big part of that if we look at life sciences sector. And then we also co-invest through our commercialization programs like Ready for Market, like the Life Sciences Innovation Fund, which really is an early stage co-investment fund that supports companies in life sciences and healthcare technologies related to human health. So challenges, we know entrepreneurs in this space in life sciences and healthcare have specific and kind of unique challenges that other sectors do in terms of advancing their technologies and ultimately getting them commercialized. They can be quite capital intensive, as you all know, and it's really about helping them become investor and customer ready through this fund specifically. And finally, and last, certainly not least, I'd like to talk about OCI's partnership with TBDC, Toronto Business Development Center. As Neha mentioned, we are partners on delivering the International Entrepreneur Soft Landing Program, which is a program that helps companies coming from abroad, primarily India, really scale their businesses in Ontario. So they are successful, seasoned entrepreneurs who land in Ontario, and there are a suite of resources. Neha mentioned some of them, programs, funding that can be made available. And through the work that we're doing at OCI, it's helping to be that connector into those regional innovation ecosystems. So who are those strategic partners, potentially customers, the key stakeholders within a region that a company, an innovative company who is landing here would be able to benefit from. So our role is to help make those connections, introductions, facilitate those networking opportunities, and hopefully also be able to provide funding. And we have a great partner in Obio, who is going to be speaking as well here today. So we are very delighted to be working with TBDC. It's a wonderful partnership, and we look forward to growing it, going further. So again, just to quickly sum up, OCI really is the center of innovation in Ontario, and we really focus on making next happen. And certainly that includes the very important life sciences and health technology sectors. And please feel free to look at our website. We have a lot of information about our programs and some of the projects we've funded over the years. Thank you very much for your time, and I will turn it back to Neha.
Thank you so much, Balinder, for that amazing introduction and brief to OCI. Moving on, I would now like to invite our speakers of the day, Mr. Bibaswan Ghoshal and Jack Lee. Mr. Jack Lee. Quick introduction, and then I would hand it over to the speakers to introduce more about themselves. Mr. Bibaswan Ghoshal is the leader of the OBO's Early Adopter Health Network, which is called EAHN program, which helps Canadian health tech companies get adopted across the country. With a background in informatics and digital health, Mr. Bibaswan has been involved in the development and commercialization of health technologies. He also runs his own non-profit organization in the arts and culture industry. So a very warm welcome to you, Mr. Bibaswan. And Mr. Jack Lee. Jack has a background in physiology and pharmacology, and has commercialized 2 medical device products that are currently in clinical trials and licensed to strategic pharma companies in Europe. He has co-authored over a dozen clinical drug device publications and provided scientific consultation to multinational pharmas in the Parkinson's and neurology field. So I welcome both of you, and we are really thankful thankful to you to giving us your valuable time today. And now I'm going to hand over the mic to you.
Hey, thank you. Thanks, Neha. Thanks, Kiran, and thanks, Bolinder, for having us. And it's a pleasure and a great opportunity for us to share some of the work that we have been doing at Obio, and how we support the healthcare industry in general. Jack, I'll share, and you can start off.
Sounds good.
Hey. Can you see my screen?
Yep, this works.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Good morning, everyone. So the Ontario Bioscience Innovation Organization, we are a membership-based organization that specializes in catering to our early startups in the biotech, medical device, digital health space. We really work on both programming as well as policy when it comes to both the provincial and federal government, as well as a lot of efforts put towards helping our companies with boots on the ground commercialization within the hospital system, as well as supporting them and providing them networking opportunities with our European, US, and Canadian investor communities, which includes venture capital funds. In terms of our 3 areas of focus, I myself, along with our team members, look after the capital access piece, which means it's specifically for our seed stage, Series A, Series B companies that are trying to raise anywhere between $1 to $50 million in American dollars in terms of their commercialization efforts. We have another team that specializes in talent and workforce development. So that means helping the co-founders bring on other management team members to their teams as they become more professionalized, and as well as helping them navigate early hires on the scientific, business, or engineering front. And then lastly, of course, Bibaswan and his team leads the early adoption program, which he'll talk about later today. From an investment standpoint, just to give you guys a high-level overview of the Canadian market. In the last couple of years, especially in the last 2 years, Ontario has secured a significant amount of funding from the venture capital community. So the graph that you see right now is for all technologies, not just the life sciences. But as of last year alone, there were almost 300 deals valuing at $4.7 billion American that happened in Ontario. For Canada as a whole, it was just under $10 billion in investment. And this is an underestimation of the actual dollar amount, since there's a lot of, as you know, there's lots of early investors or private investors where that information is not public domain. But you can see that from a technology ecosystem, we have a very vibrant investment community within Canada, as well as with our American and European investors. When we look at the past 4 years specifically, you can see that for the breakdown, the life sciences industry is the second largest investment industry in Canada, followed by internet, communications, and telecom space. In terms of the detailed breakdowns of some of these sectors for the last 4 to 5 years, we actually do see in the life sciences, predominantly the 3 major investments are in biotech, drug and biologics, of course, in the digital health, e-health, and IT space within the hospital systems, and of course, medical devices and surgical equipment in Canada. One last thing I kind of wanted to touch upon is that Obio specifically, every year for our Canadian incorporated companies, we run an investment summit here in Toronto. This past year, we had 88 unique venture funds come and listen to 79 companies present. And these were all seed and Series A stage biotech and medical device and digital health companies. So for us, it's really important that not only are we helping our Canadian companies attract investment from the Canadian investors, but obviously we're bringing on and inviting the multinational pharmas, the multinational medical devices, and all the investors from abroad to come and look at our best companies. For any additional information you guys have or want, at the end of these slides, we'll give you citations so you can find all the different reports that both Swan and I have mentioned.
Okay, I'll take over and speak about the earlier Adopter Health Network program. But as Jack was speaking, I also thought of mentioning that at Obio, we run a lot of workforce development programs as well, and primarily in the training and training and boot camps related specifically to healthcare industry. So we offer very healthcare specific training in terms of what entrepreneurship, innovation, regulatory. Like in a few weeks, we are doing a webinar on SR&ED credits and scientific research and scientific experimental and research credits that the government of Canada provides to early startups as well. Those kind of information are also available through Obio. As Jack mentioned, we are very sector specific. So we work only with the life sciences companies and provide very life sciences specific training. So now talking about the market acceleration program, obviously the purpose of the program is to help Canadian companies specifically get access to the healthcare system in Canada. So I will start with a brief introduction or a snapshot of the Canadian healthcare ecosystem. Canadian healthcare is a public healthcare system. I'm pretty sure all of you probably are aware of that. There's a limited amount of, so the primary care sector, the dental sector, those are the ones that have been privatized in the past, that run in a privatized model, and also like occupational therapies and physiotherapies and all those assisted devices and assisted technologies or treatments that are run privatized. So it's like a 75-20, 70-30 split between public and private healthcare, but the primary care that is delivered is in a public form. Now, hospitals, and that's one of the reasons when hospitals or healthcare systems are purchasing products or technologies from innovations, or from innovative companies or early stage companies, the procurement is managed individually by the provinces and the territories, right? So it's a very, in Indian terms, it's very state driven rather than the central government driven. So the provinces will dictate how, and every province has their different rules and regulations on how procurement can be done based on the broader public sector guidelines, right? So there's throughout Canada, there's a broader public sector guidelines, and based on that, there's specific rules for each province in terms of healthcare procurement. Now, if you see these numbers, these are incredible numbers in terms of healthcare spending. So the overall healthcare spending in 2022 was $331 billion, which contributed to 12.2% of the Canadian GDP. Now, if you see that in terms of other countries, in terms of average spend per person, Canada is 6th in the list of countries. But if you see overall healthcare spending, I think Canada ranks next to US in terms of healthcare spending every year. And this is in combination of both the private and the public dollars that are spent. Ontario as a province has one of the few large hospital systems. The way Ontario is different from a lot of other provinces is the Ontario hospitals can procure their own solutions, whereas a lot of the other provinces like Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba are completely a health system where the province runs their own, the whole of the healthcare, right? So there's no individual hospitals or no individual entities. It's all under one provincial umbrella. So the reason we had created the Early Adopter Health Network program is we wanted to create this ecosystem which sort of intersects between healthcare organizations and early stage companies, whether they're in the digital health, medical devices, diagnostics, etc., that are trying to sell directly to the hospitals, and they're finding no pathway into the hospital system. So we basically connect and fund companies to do projects with healthcare organizations. Our basic motivation is, or the basic motivation for the companies are try it before you buy, or for the hospitals is try it before you buy it, right? So basically they validate the technology and show that there's a cost saving for the technology, make a business case to the hospital. And once they successfully make that business case, it's easier for the companies to get adopted in the healthcare system. So currently we have around 50 plus, so around 57, 58 healthcare organizations and health systems that amount to over 200 hospital sites and clinics in Canada. So it's a very sizable network that we have created already. As you can see, a lot of since we are Ontario based, we have a large network of hospitals here in Ontario, which covers all the large hospitals or majority of the large hospitals and some of the rural, smaller hospitals as well. We also covered the whole breadth of organizations, from the urgent care to primary care space to home and community care and long-term care facilities as well. And then you can see we have larger health systems in Western Canada and Eastern Canada that we work closely together with as well. So as an Indian startup who's coming and setting up their base in Canada and in Ontario, what are the things that the healthcare organizations are looking for, or how do you sell to healthcare organizations, right? The first is obviously, if you need to be, it's better if you're a Canadian or an Ontario-based company. The Ontario government, the province of Ontario, they introduced the Building Ontario Business Initiative Act last year, which would enable the public sector to, prioritize buying of Ontario-based goods from Ontario-based small and medium enterprises. This act has not been acted up, forced yet, but it will come into effect sometime this year or later next year. Then obviously, hospitals won't even touch a product that is not Health Canada approved. So Health Canada approval is very important. So going through the right regulatory pathway. Now, again, like for digital health, it's a different thing because you don't need to have a Health Canada approval unless you are using AI, ML in your and predicting or creating a predicting software. Then obviously you need to show cost savings. So there are two kinds of budgets that the hospitals have. The one is operating budget and the other is capital budget. Now, if the product can be purchased with the use of operating budgets, it's always preferable for the healthcare organizations to purchase these kind of products for capital intensive products is a little difficult, just because the capital budget is used for stuff like, large MRI machines and gloves and all this, equipment in the hospital, right? So that's like a fixed budget that they have, and unless there's a absolute necessity for getting a new equipment, it becomes difficult. So if you show cost saving and improvement in efficiencies of the clinical workflow, that amounts to savings in the operating budget over 5 to 10 years, then that's an easier conversation to have with a healthcare organization here in Canada. And then obviously it needs to be integratable with the hospital information system, or the EMRs. And it's very important to create a network of clinical champions, like doctors, physicians, who are willing to vouch for the product, and and then who believe in the product and would like to use the product themselves in the hospital environment. And then also we need extensive product validation. So one of the examples which I was asked from one of the Indian companies that actually had immigrated to Canada and have set up shop here, is that whether if you do validation in India, will that work with healthcare organizations here? Now, if it's a proper, well done clinical study, which is published in a peer review public article, a peer reviewed journal, then it does not matter where the study has been completed, as long as you have the right kind of data. And then there's supports that can be available, like if you have shown cost savings in the Indian context or in Indian healthcare organizations. If you work with a health economist here, they might be able to convert that data in terms of Canadian terms and just create that value proposition. You will still need some kind of validation here in Canada, but at least there might be support in doing that if you have already pre-existing validation in India. So these are all the resources that we talked about. We added this link to Government of Canada SR&ED credits, tax incentives as well. If you are planning to come and establish yourself here, this is a great resource to go through as well. And whatever data that we have presented, we have put it into these links. So we'll be happy to share the slides and the links too with you. And then if you have any questions or after this presentation, please feel free to reach out to us as well. Okay. Happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you so much. That was a great presentation. Honestly, a lot of learning for me as well. So Kiran, can we jump onto the questions directly? And are you taking up the questions from the startups? You're on mute, Kiran.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, we can definitely go to the question and answer session. My colleague Jay will take the Q&A session lead. What do you, Jay?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Kiran. So thank you panelists for the wonderful session. I think you have shown us a window into the Canadian ecosystem through their presentations. So we have a couple of questions from the audience now. Number one from Colored Curve Consultancy Services. So what are the opportunities available to a software service startup, like having experience of developing software solution for US-based healthcare organization? So he just wants to know, like, what would be the opportunity for a software service startups having their inclination towards a healthcare organization. So
I can take that. So SaaS services are always required by healthcare organizations. Now, if you are selling the service only, then it's more difficult to get into the sort of the software space in healthcare specifically. But if you have a product that works as that offers as a subscription based or a SaaS based product for a particular healthcare unit or an indication, then definitely there are opportunities for that to work with hospitals on that.
So thank you, Joshel, for the question, for answering that. So we have another question from Trilok. He is just asking the question directly to Ms. Balinder. So they have two proprietary based functions that surpasses the formula of a bioinformatic distance. They want to know if there is a scope of collaborating with OCI for their product integration and commercialization.
Thank you so much for the question. It might be a specific technical question, but maybe I can just provide a little more detail about how OCI helps companies in Ontario who are looking to collaborate with a research partner. So essentially, the company has defined that there's a technology gap or a technology development gap. And they don't necessarily have the resources themselves in-house, so they can partner with a college or a university or a research hospital in Ontario, and OCI can provide funding support. So through that Collaborate to Commercialize program, we basically can support a project between a company and a researcher and at that academic institution. So it could definitely be a research hospital. What we also, and I didn't mention this in my presentation, is we also look at, the opportunity for new IP to be generated. And so commercialization of academic IP is a big part of what OCI also looks at as well. So we want to understand what the company's sort of business model is, where are some of the gaps that they feel a research collaboration could help fill or address. And ultimately, it's about what's the pathway, commercialization pathway, and getting that technology to market. So we look to understand sort of the entire business of that company and understand what sort of resources and assistance do they require. And if it is an OCI program opportunity, that's great. And I think, as Jack and Bibaswan also mentioned, there are other funding agencies, other programs, other resources that can assist with those R&D and commercialization activities. So it's really understanding, the overall business and kind of what the challenges are to help accelerate commercialization and really provide a competitive edge to that company in terms of the market.
Thank you, Belinda. Thank you so much for answering the question. So we have one more question, from Debbie Carr. How is overall adoption of end consumer towards healthcare apps? So he's also targeting towards a service-based adoption. Also, are local healthcare delivery centers adopting more technology towards patient engagement and experience? I think Mr. Joshel, you're the better one to answer this question.
Sure. Yes, there we are seeing an increase in adoption of technologies that are improving patient engagement and experience. So the kind of the projects that we support in terms of validating a technology for procurement or purchase by the healthcare organization, we look into the quadruple aim of healthcare. So we are not only looking into clinical outcomes, but we are also looking into improvement in patient and provider engagement and satisfaction, as well as cost savings, as I already mentioned, right? So patient and provider engagement, connectivity, connecting between different sort of stakeholders within the healthcare ecosystem is definitely something that is on the rise, and we have seen apps being like that being adopted, right? But the thing to keep in mind when you're developing or commercializing these kind of apps is how who is going to pay for this, right? And why are they going to pay for this? And that is a very important question to ask when you're trying to come up with the business model, right? So that clarity in the business model would really help you to break into the healthcare sectors in terms of selling directly to the hospitals.
Thank you. So we have a couple of questions highlighting on how the Canadian ecosystem is adopting or utilizing technology with respect to artificial intelligence and big data, and how it is driving the operational efficiency. So the audience wants to know how adaptive is the Canadian healthcare ecosystem in integrating artificial intelligence and big data into providing more efficient services.
I could take this. So yes, we do
Thank
have.
you, Ali. Yeah.
We do have many companies in Canada and US that are using AI to improve efficiencies within the hospital system. Again, it's understanding what the business model is of how some of these hospital systems or provinces or states in the US are able to pay for those services. So a good example would be Think Health, or which is a company based in Canada that specializes in this. There are numerous companies. So I would say look at your competitors and look at your other comparable companies that are established in this space to get a better understanding of what that business model is. In terms of adoption, yes, many hospitals are doing this. The one thing you have to keep in mind is what is the level of data that they're using to optimize. Because if it's all de-identified data and it's just strictly operational data from a management of a hospital, that usually doesn't have to deal with HIPAA or PIPA compliance, which are the Canadian and US privacy laws, right? But if you're dealing with optimization of patient data and patient management, you have to understand what those requirements are.
Thank you, Lee. So, so I have a question for Neha. So, what do you think? Like, how is it important for any startup to have their presence in Canada as opposed to do the market or approach the market remotely? Like, where do you think being present in Canada would make a significant improvement or significant approach?
Sure, thanks for the question there. So I think it's very, very important, whether it's Canada, whether you launch your product anywhere in the globe, having your presence in that particular geography is important. The reason is the customer mindset, the adaptability, right? Normally when I came to Canada, I was always comparing Canada with US. But then I personally realized these are two completely different geographies, different ecosystems. To launch your product, to understand the mindset of the customers. And when it comes to the North American geography like Canada, and when we compare it with Indian ecosystem, it is very different because the adaptability of the technology and the depth of the markets here are quite different. So understand before you understand whether your market, whether your product is adaptable here in the market, you have to do the Reiki of the ecosystem in terms of what are the kind of opportunities available locally, who are the people who can guide me launch the product here, whether there is an acceptance of my kind of a technology in the geography. Are there many competitors in the ecosystem already? So before you get that hands-on experience, I don't think so it is a good idea for any kind of a businesses to do a remote work. And because again, when it comes to Canada, I have personally seen the adaptability is very slow. The way we work in Indian ecosystem and the way we work here, but once you are there, you launch and you are there with the right kind of people, there's a long way to go. Then there's lots of opportunity in the country. So yes, it is very important, Jay, to be here and understand the ecosystem and monitor the ecosystem closely.
Thank you, Neha. I think now we have a better idea why we have to be in person, and not many things can be done very remotely. So Ms. Balinder,
healthcare sector, right? Trials are important, licenses are important. So as Bibaswan already told, licenses from Health Canada, approval from Health Canada is very, very important. So we cannot ignore those facts and directly launch the product.
So how is the market opportunities like for Indian startups want to participate remotely? Like how can that be done if not present in person?
The second option is you hire local people, or you partner with local players here in the ecosystem. If you don't want to travel personally, that's the way to do it. But having completely remote presence will not help.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So I have a question for Ms. Balindra. So I just want to know, like, what are the biggest challenges that would be faced by any healthcare startup while entering into the Canadian market, and suppose the significant barriers that they are opposed to, that they have to oppose.
Thank you for the question, and maybe I will tag team with the Obio team here on this one.
Sure.
So again, maybe just to kind of go back to my earlier point about understanding, what the business model looks like, and maybe just to build on what Neha just said, that physical presence, certainly from OCI standpoint, the companies do need to be incorporated, either in Ontario or in Canada. So there needs to be sort of physical operation here. Which is more than just a sales operation. But when the companies have landed, for example, through the partnership we have with TBDC and the soft landing program, we are already working with companies who are here, who are setting up headquarters here, who are in the health tech space. But it's a journey, right? So it's kind of planning for that, and again, understanding the market and by geography is really important. For us, it's when we're engaging with any company, we really want to understand what's the market driver for that company. Like, what is the use case for that specific technology that they're developing? And in terms of the market, we like to understand what is the global addressable market. And then what is that market share, for example, that exists in North America or in Canada. And how much of that market share could the company acquire if they were successful in commercializing their product? So it's sort of a process that we go through, and we work, our business development team, I working with TBDC, work closely with the companies that are here, that have landed here, to really understand what their business is all about, what are their needs. And it's more than the technology, it's the business side of the equation that is just as important as the technology piece. And the one thing that I would add is maybe just to add again to what Neha just said, if companies are looking for funding or looking for investment here in Ontario or in Canada, those investors would want that physical presence of the team here. So, it is that kind of that big picture that a company would need to look at, right? And if that market opportunity is really strong in North America, in Canada, in Ontario, then, it's well worth exploring it a bit further.
Sure. That shows accountability of the startup, how well they are committed towards their product and to the development. Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Balindra. So I have another question. So it's generally targeted to all. How is this a regulatory platform in the Canadian ecosystem? Is like I heard Josh talk about the Health Canada approvals. So how strict or rigid these approvals and for different classes of devices or different classes of services in specific?
Sure, I could take this one. So to begin, there's two things that you have to get certified for if you believe you are a regulated technology, meaning it's software as a medical device or a traditional medical device product. The first is that for your ISO certification, Canada follows the European standard now, which is MDSAP. So that's the first level. I understand that in the US, they currently don't follow MDSAP, but that's the direction that the US FDA will go towards. So first level, you make sure you have MDSAP. In terms of Health Canada requirements, it's extremely strict, no different from European and American laws. Therefore, we have a risk-based system in Canada. So we have Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, Class 4. However, a Class 2 product in Canada is not the same as a Class 2 product in the United States. So you will have to do the research and maybe even engage a regulatory agent to make sure that if you have a predicate device or a comparable device in the European or US market, what is its equivalent classification in Canada? And then lastly, for our software-based healthcare companies, if there is any data analysis of patient data in your software, you are most likely going to be a Class 2 device. If you are managing patient data, you're just displaying the graphs, almost like an electronic health medical system, you're probably a Class 1 or medical device exempt software, both of which you still need to get a letter of no objection from Health Canada. Again, I highly recommend that you work with a regulatory agent, whether they're based in India or based in Canada or the United States, that understands what the regulatory standards are. All your customers in Canada understand this requirement, so that will probably be the first thing they will ask for.
Oh, excellent, thank you, Lee. So, so any device that has been already validated or say standard like the regulatory standard approved in Indian DCGI platform, will that be easier? It makes it easier to get an approval in Canadian ecosystem, or they have to follow the same procedure for everyone else?
It's the same procedure as everyone else. However, if you already have approval in your local jurisdiction, the working assumption is the amount of documentation that you need for Health Canada should be easier because you should already have the same level of standards for some of those documentation or proof from a risk or efficacy standpoint of that product.
Okay, thank you, Lee. So the one final question, just wanted to ask on behalf of all the startups. So what would be the partnerships that we would want to be in, or how would be the funding opportunities be in the Canada for the startups, like most startups in specifically in healthcare ecosystem? So Neha can answer this question. I think she's in the.
No problem. I think I can also take help of
Please.
Balint, but I'll try to answer some. So when it comes to funding in Canada ecosystem, and I think more or less in most of the ecosystem now, is you have to have your proof of concept. The product has to be viable as per the Canadian standards. The VC ecosystem here is so angel ecosystem is little slow here in the Canadian market. So normally the funding size is post 1 million. So that comes to pre-Series A and Series A funding. So initial rounds of fund is where the startup has to be able to sustain by themselves, or they can take help from the government research programs and grants, and where TBDC and OCI comes in picture to help you support through your initial years of sustenance in the country and help you grow up to the stage where then your product becomes viable for the VC funding.
Thank you, Neha. So can you share some success stories from your side so it can inspire our startups?
Yeah, so a big biotech success story, because this is a healthcare forum, is Tech Invention. Sorry, the founder was not able to join today, but Syed is the name of the founder. He's a researcher, and he has, in fact, in a very short span of time, he got his work permit approved just in 20 days because of the kind of technology he was building. And post that, he has not even landed, but he's like doing to and fro as of now, Canada, India, and he was able to crack some of the very key partnerships in the country with the help of OCI and TBDC, and at the same time he is now on the boards of many academia for helping students from the healthcare sector, and taking the help of the academia to also get some grants. So Tech Invention is definitely a very good success story in the context with Indian entrepreneurs successing in a Canadian ecosystem.
Yeah. Thank you, Neha.
So others, but I am focusing on the healthcare sector as of now. Yeah.
So we have one last question, like we are reaching out of time. From this is from Anand Garg. So he just wants to know, like, if someone comes into Canada with a express entry visa or express entry PR, so how will TBDC or OCI help him, assist him in this scenario?
So same way, Jay. So TBDC can take in help of OCI. So he might be a good fit for our SLP, not for a starter visa, because he must have already got his PR. So through our SLP program, of course, but his company has to be registered in Ontario. And through our SLP program, we can look at supporting him and connecting to various ecosystem stakeholders, depending on what stage of the product he is and what kind of a technology he's building.
Okay. So that's all the question for us now. Thank you, Joshel. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Belinda. Thank you, Neha. It's up to you, Kiran. I can follow up and take the.
Okay, thank you, Jay, for moderating the Q&A session. And then we'll share all the remaining questions which we are not able to post to the speakers, and then we can do offline connections with those startups if those startups excites you, and then we would be happy to facilitate those introductions to you as well. So with this, I'll like to thank all the speakers, and then specifically the TBDC and then our outreach partner Head Start Network Foundation in making this event a fruitful thing. So back to you, Neha, if you want to say anything from your end.
So just sorry to interrupt you all. Like I just want to take a screenshot of the moment just to keep. So if you can just smile. Just sorry, one more. Smile. Yeah, that would do. Thank you.
Yeah, what do you Neha?
Neha, yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Hey, you're not audible.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
I just want to thank our speakers. It was really an insightful session. Thanks, Bibhasan, Jack, Balinder, for the support and wonderful insight on the Canadian healthcare landscape.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and it was great to meet everyone, Kiran and your team as well. And thank you to all the attendees for your question.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having us, and it was a pleasure sharing our experience with everyone. And thanks, Kiran, and thanks, Neha. Thanks, Valinder, for having us. Thank you. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, Neha. I think you connected.
Yeah. I just wanted to thank everyone. I wanted to thank our speakers, our audiences, and a big thank you to Majumdar Saw Foundation, Kiran, Jay, for all the support in bringing such a wonderful audiences. And thanks, Balinder, for the insight and bringing OBI to us and the speakers. And we look forward for many more such insightful events jointly.
Sure.
Wonderful. Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Jay, you can end the session.
I'll end the sessions.